It was a rainy Saturday night. I was at a restaurant with friends, having a great time. As it neared midnight, we decided to leave. We said our goodbyes, and I walked to my car. I started driving home, feeling very tired after a long day. My house was about an hour's drive away. On the way, I started to feel sleepy, so I turned on the radio to stay awake. But the radio wasn't working, it was just static. While I was trying to fix it, I suddenly saw someone standing in the middle of the road. I quickly swerved to the left and hit the brakes. The car stopped with a screech. I got out to check, but there was no one there. I looked around where I had seen the person, but there was no sign of anyone. No person, no tire marks, nothing to show that someone had been there. As I settled back into my car, a lingering unease clung to me. I reassured myself it was merely fatigue playing tricks on my mind. A quick check confirmed that everything in the car was operational, except the radio. Still a bit shaken, I resumed my drive home, taking it slower than usual. I finally reached my house at 1 a.m. No sooner had I stepped inside than my phone erupted with a call. It was Andy, who I'd dined with earlier. His voice carried a note of concern as he asked if I had made it home safely. I assured him I was fine and inquired about his anxious tone. Andy's words then tumbled out, a mix of confusion and fear. He confessed that on his drive home, he'd seen someone in the road who looked exactly like me. Horrified at the thought that he might have hit me, he checked, but found no one there. "That's strange," I responded, a chill running down my spine. "I saw something similar tonight." Andy mentioned he would call our other two friends to see if they had noticed anything unusual too. His voice cracked slightly with panic. I advised him to try not to dwell on it too much for now and to get some rest. We agreed to delve into this bizarre occurrence the next day. After ending the call, I took a relaxing hot shower and went to bed. The next morning, we four friends planned to meet at the same restaurant to talk about the strange happenings from the previous night. I arrived early, only to discover the restaurant had been completely destroyed by a fire. The building was reduced to ashes. Firefighters and paramedics were on the scene, searching through the debris for survivors and retrieving bodies. Curious and shocked, I approached a bystander watching from the roadside. I asked him what had occurred. He explained that a severe fire had broken out the previous night. Tragically, no one inside had survived. They were all trapped by the blaze. Unfortunately, no calls could be made to the fire department because all the phone lines had been destroyed. The fire engines and paramedics only arrived in the morning when it was too late, and everyone inside was already deceased. It felt surreal, considering we had just dined there the previous evening. I headed towards the road to wait for my friends, but as I walked, a paramedic passed by carrying a charred body. Despite the damage, the face looked hauntingly familiar. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was the same person I had spoken to just moments earlier. I glanced back to double-check, but he was nowhere to be seen. My heart raced as I wondered if I had just seen a ghost. The paramedic laid the body next to another, which to my astonishment, also looked familiar. It was the person I had seen standing in the road last night. I had thought I nearly hit him with my car, but observing his injuries, it seemed he too had perished in the fire. My mind was reeling. The situation was becoming unnervingly surreal, as if I was suddenly trapped in a ghost story. Just then, Andy arrived, stunned to see the restaurant reduced to ashes. "How is that even possible?" he exclaimed. "We were almost the last ones to leave, and the owner was closing up." "I know, it's all so bizarre. This fire and now, seemingly, ghosts everywhere," I replied. "Ghosts?" Andy looked perplexed. I explained how I had seen someone I talked to last night, and again this morning, both times under chilling circumstances. "That is strange," he agreed. "I didn't see any ghosts, but I do remember seeing you in front of my car last night." As we spoke, the paramedics emerged with 4 more bodies. My heart sank as I realized they were Andy, me, and our 2 other friends, all of us apparently victims of the fire. I stared in disbelief at Andy, then at what was unmistakably my own charred body being carried away. It had been an incredibly long day at work, and exhaustion clung to me like a heavy cloak. My job as a security guard often bordered on the mundane, yet it still left me utterly drained by the end of each shift. Perhaps it was the monotony that wore me down. All I could think about was getting home and collapsing into bed. However, as I drove past a Burger King, my stomach growled loudly, reminding me that I hadn't eaten in what felt like an eternity. I had been surviving on coffee alone, and it was starting to take its toll. Unable to ignore the hunger any longer, I pulled into the drive-thru. Placing my order, I noted with some disappointment that the dining area was closed, so eating in my car was my only option. I couldn't possibly wait until I got home. Once I had my food, I parked in an empty space, turned off the engine, and allowed the quiet darkness to envelop me. There were only 2 other cars in the lot, likely belonging to the Burger King employees. As I unwrapped my burger and took a satisfying bite, a rustling noise outside my window caught my attention. I was parked in the far corner of the lot, near some decorative bushes that separated the parking area from a small park. I glanced up and saw a group of men moving toward my car, their faces obscured by hoodies and surgical masks. Given that the pandemic was easing off, it was unusual to see masks worn outdoors. Instinctively, I locked my doors and rolled up the windows, hoping they would just move along. But they didn't. Instead, they encircled my car. There were at least 5 of them, with 2 blocking the rear of my car, preventing any escape, and another one approaching my window. He tapped lightly on the glass, sending a jolt of panic through me. Feeling trapped and helpless, I knew I had to act quickly. My mind raced, and then I remembered the pepper spray in my glove compartment. With shaky hands, I reached over and grabbed it, clutching it tightly in my right hand, my heart pounding as I prepared for whatever might come next. One of the men tapped on my window again, but this time he held up a gun. He didn't point it directly at me, just showed it, clearly trying to intimidate me into unlocking the door. Instead of complying, my fear solidified into resolve. There was no way I was opening that door now. I shifted the car into reverse, aware of the 2 men standing behind me. Glancing back, I began to inch the car backward. In my peripheral vision, I saw the man at my window raise the gun and shout something. Panic surged through me, and I slammed my foot on the gas. The men behind me leaped out of the way just in time, narrowly avoiding being hit. My hands were trembling as I sped away, my heart racing. As I drove home, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. It was a stark reminder that danger can strike out of nowhere, transforming an ordinary night into a life-altering event. When I finally reached home, it hit me just how lucky I was to have escaped unharmed. I immediately called the police and reported the incident. So far, there hasn't been any update on the case. With the men wearing masks, it's uncertain if they'll ever be caught. But you never know. The police can be quite resourceful. I still visit that Burger King occasionally, but I'm much more cautious now. I always check my surroundings, not wanting to be caught off guard again. What do you think about these eerie encounters? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon for more spine-tingling content. Until next time, stay safe and stay alert.